I think we might as well go ahead and get started right now. Okay. So, welcome. It's a beautiful day, isn't it? As I was meditating, I was just thinking, this is such a gorgeous day. I couldn't imagine a better place to be right now than right here, right now. We're really lucky to be right here. My name is Wedin. I'm a lay teacher here. I've been coming here to Zen Center for about 15 years, and I've been meditating off and on since college. Believe it or not, I'm still learning new things about meditating. And tonight I want to share with you some new perspectives that I've gained just in the last month or so. And maybe they might help you out a little bit too, to give you a few things to think about. And so those of you here in the Zendo may have noticed that I've been walking around with this cane. And this cane is a hint about the topic for my talk this evening. The topic is walking Buddha's Noble Eightfold Path, mental training with an artificial knee. And this talk came about because of the convergence of two recent events in my life. The first event is really kind of an ongoing event. It's I teach the intro to Zen meditation, just like the class is happening over there. I teach it usually on the first Tuesday of each month. And during that class, like in all the intro classes, we teach how to meditate in the Zen Buddhist tradition. But in each of the classes, there's also one important Buddhist concept that's introduced. And in the first class of the month, the topic is the Four Noble Truths, and that includes the Noble Eightfold Path. So I get to talk always about the Noble Eightfold Path. So it's on my mind quite a bit. So that's the first thing that's on my mind. And then the second thing is recently I had surgery on my arthritic left knee. Just a little over 4 weeks ago, I got a total knee replacement on my left knee. And the recovery process for a knee replacement is pretty intense. And it involves 6 weeks of physical therapy. And so I've been meeting with a physical therapist twice a week, and I've been doing physical therapy exercises every day at home to restore the functionality of this knee. So when I've been spending all this time doing physical therapy, I started noticing that some of the principles and processes involved in physical therapy were really, I think, very similar to some of the principles and processes involved in the part of the Eightfold Path known as the mental training component. So I'm going to talk a little bit about those similarities and some differences this evening. So here's the roadmap for this talk. First, I'm going to review the Buddhist teaching of the Eightfold Path with a special emphasis on steps 6, 7, and 8, which is called the mental training component. Then I'm going to give a real short overview of the principles of physical therapy as practiced in Western medicine. And then I'm going to try to compare these two, see if we can gain any insights that might be useful to us in our meditation practice. So let's start with the Eightfold Path. This was introduced by Buddha in his very first teaching, 25 years ago, right after his enlightenment. His first teaching was about the Four Noble Truths. And the first noble truth is that there is suffering in life. Second truth is that suffering is a result of our craving and attachments and our desire to have things go the way we want them to be. The third truth is that suffering will cease if we eliminate those root causes of craving and desire. And we can do that by following the fourth noble truth, which is called the Noble Eightfold Path. So here's how we get to the Noble Eightfold Path. It's really the fourth of the Noble Truths. So the easiest way for me to think about this Eightfold Path, which has 8 steps, is to break it into 3 components. This is how it's usually often taught. The first component is called the wisdom training component. This is steps 1 and 2, which is right view and right intent. And that means seeing the world as it really is and being committed to following the path in all its steps. That's the wisdom training component. The second component is the ethics training component, steps 3, 4, and 5. Right speech, right action, and right livelihood. So ethics, this means to behave in our daily life, in our relations with others, so that we don't bring suffering to others or to ourselves. The third and final component, this is steps 6, 7, and 8, is the mental training component. And that's the one I'm going to focus on tonight. So steps 6, 7, and 8, mental training component is right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So let's take those one at a time. Step 6 is right effort. And in the early Buddhist tradition, in the sutras, the lectures of Buddha, his teachings, right effort is defined to be all about cultivating a positive attitude, state of mind, and preventing the rise of unwholesome states. So positive up, unwholesome states down. In the Yogacara school of Buddhism, which came along in the early parts of the Common Era, the way that they talked about it was emphasizing the importance of planting good seeds rather than bad seeds. And a good seed is an intentional, mindful act that you can shape your mind and your future, and lead you towards enlightenment and liberation. So it's a seed of karma, good seeds of karma versus bad seeds of karma. And as I was thinking about this, I thought of, well, another story I've heard sometimes that reminds me of this a little bit. And this is not even a Buddhist story, but you hear this quite a bit frequently. This is the story of the 2 wolves. You know the story of the 2 wolves? This is often attributed to a Native American story. So it goes like this. There's an elder teaching his grandson about life. And the elder says, inside all of us, there are 2 wolves battling each other. One is evil. It's anger, jealousy, greed, resentment, and lies. The other is good, joy, peace, love, kindness, empathy, and truth. And the grandson asks, which wolf wins? And the elder replies, the one you feed. So all of these things are talking about the effort that we need to place to move towards the good and away from the bad. That's what right effort is all about. That's step number 6 in this Eightfold Path. So moving on to step 7, which is right mindfulness. And mindfulness is a word that I kind of got confused about because it gets used in a bunch of different ways. The early usage of it in the Satipatthana Sutra is one of Buddha's early teachings, called the Mindfulness Sutra. Talks about mindfulness as being attentively and diligently present, aware of what's happening within and around oneself without attachment or aversion or judgment. And it goes on and it talks about this in 4 different domains of our lives, including our bodies, our emotions, and our minds. When you look at modern writers, when they talk about mindfulness, they tend to say and bring it to our daily lives, look at a daily context of how we can practice mindfulness. Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Buddhist writer, he talks about being mindful when walking or drinking tea or simply breathing. And other modern writers talk about being mindful when you're eating or doing the dishes or raking leaves or parenting. So just in your daily life. And there's a third way of thinking about mindfulness. And this was introduced to me by my teacher, Tim Burkett. And he said to think about it as one of the two main types of meditation. And so it's pretty much generally accepted that there are two broad classes of meditation. One is a very concentration type of meditation. And the other is an open awareness type of meditation. And the open awareness type of meditation is in Zen Buddhism, we call that just sitting or bare awareness or shikantaza. And Tim Burkett says that's what step 7 mindfulness is shikantaza. If you want to learn more about shikantaza, by the way, that's the subject of this spring's practice period, which starts in a few weeks, April 9th, I believe, or April 3rd, maybe. So these are all different ways of talking about mindfulness, but each one of these, there's some key words that everybody uses in talking about mindfulness. It's like openness and curiosity and acceptance. That's the attitude you have when you're mindful. So that was step 7. Now step 8 of this eightfold path, remember we're talking about mental training here. Step 8 is right concentration. And remember I talked about two types of meditation. This is the other type of meditation. This is the concentration. And this is what they're teaching over there right now in the meditation, intro to meditation. This is where you concentrate and keep coming back to your breath, keep coming back to your breath. In other schools of Buddhism, it might be keep coming back to your mantra, but you're concentrating on one particular thing. And this allows you to really still your mind and keep calming your mind and get to deeper and deeper states of concentration. So that's what the final step of the Eightfold Path is, right concentration. So you put these things together, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. And it's a package. It's called the mental training component. And Buddhists have been doing this for hundreds, thousands of years. So it's really nothing new. But one thing that's new, I think, is that in the last 3-4 decades, is that scientists have started to understand what's happening in the brain and the body during this mental training. So there have been some pretty interesting discoveries by psychologists and neuroscientists in this. They've got this new area of science now called contemplative science. So I'm just going to mention a few of those findings about what goes on when we undergo this mental training. So here are some findings. For long-term meditators and those that we're defining that as people that have had like 1,000 hours of meditation practice. And if you look, the scientists are looking for measurable indicators. They look at brain waves. They use instrumentation that can look at brain waves, or what's going on in the brain, or they check for hormone levels in the blood, like hormones like cortisol and things like that. They are able to show that these meditators are less reactive to stress and inflammation than normal people. They also give these people attention tests, and they find that they have improved performance on a variety of different types of attention tests. And they find out that the brains of these meditators are more attuned to those that are suffering. And they look at their circuits in the brain that are associated with the mind wandering or with self-obsessed thoughts. And for these meditators, those circuits show weakened activity. So that's all things that are going on with these long-term meditators. Some of these studies also show that even for short-term people that have only practiced for a couple of weeks, learned how to meditate, they can show improved results on attention tests. So something's going on. And the mechanism for what's happening, according to the neuroscientists, is something they call neuroplasticity. Anybody heard of neuroplasticity? Okay. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming neural connections throughout life. So your brain can kind of keep reorganizing itself. And this was a property that really wasn't recognized until the last part of the 20th century. One of the phrases that I was taught that sort of goes along with this, that I think is kind of catchy and appeals to me, is that neurons that fire together wire together. So if a neural pathway, neurons talking to each other, if that pathway is activated repeatedly, it becomes stronger. So that's how mental training works when you look at it from the perspective of a neuroscientist. So now I'm going to switch gears completely and talk about physical therapy. So physical therapy is a branch of healthcare that looks at evaluating, diagnosing, and treating movement dysfunction. That's one of the definitions I came across. And the three leading reasons that people require physical therapy are injuries and traumas, post-surgical rehabilitation, like me, and chronic pain management. Now, in the US, a professional who's trained and qualified to be a physical therapist must have a doctor of physical therapy degree, which is a 3-year degree, typically following an undergraduate degree. So it's a pretty extensive training program. There's coursework in anatomy, physiology, neuroscience. They do clinical sciences classes. They do clinical practice. So it's three-year coursework. And when you're doing physical therapy, it's important to work with one of these trained professionals, because they have all this expertise about how the body works. They can diagnose individual needs, and then they can develop customized programs and treatment programs, and they can make sure that that you're making progress and at the right pace. Their plans will keep you going at the right pace, and you do things safely. So just to illustrate a little bit about how this physical therapy works, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my knee and what my plan has been, how it's been working. So for knee surgery, the emphasis on physical therapy is getting the knee to bend again and getting the quadriceps muscle, the thigh muscle, to work properly. So even though the quadriceps muscle is not severed in any way, when the knee is replaced, it really suffers quite a bit of trauma during the surgery, and there's a lot of swelling and inflammation, and when you reduce mobility and there's pain. And when you come out of surgery, you can't bend the knee very much at all. For the first few days, you can maybe bend it anywhere from 0 to 70 degrees if you're lucky. Okay. And the physical therapist gives you a bunch of exercises to do, and the goal after 2 weeks of doing these exercises is to bend it 90 degrees. Because at 90 degrees, then after 2 weeks, then you can walk and you can sit in a chair more easily. And then they keep working with you. After 4 weeks, the goal is 110 degrees, because then you can tie a shoe or pick something up off the floor, or you can exercise on a bicycle, you can pedal all the way around. And then after 6 weeks, which is kind of the normal course of this physical therapy, they would like you to be to 120 degrees. And they consider successful, and that's kind of the full functionality they're shooting for. And so the typical program is there are various exercises. I typically get 4 or 5 specific exercises that I'm supposed to do every day. I would do 2 sets of 10 repetitions in the morning and again in the afternoon. And my therapist would check on my progress. I would meet twice a week. She would check on my progress, look at my form. She'd make some corrections, and then she'd measure the angle of my bend. She'd give me some encouragement, introduce a new exercise depending upon what she had seen. And then I'd go home and do these exercises. And so I'm really pleased with how things are going. I've hit my benchmarks. Last week was my 4 weeks. I was at 112 degrees. I'm an overachiever. Instead of 110, 112. And I used a walker pretty much for the first 2 weeks. Then I moved to a cane, and now I mostly you go without a cane. Sometimes I use a cane, sometimes I don't. So things are going pretty well for me. One of the interesting things about this whole physical therapy process was that it actually began before my surgery. I got this booklet. They gave me this 70-page booklet about a hip and knee replacement. This is from my healthcare provider, telling me everything to expect before, during, and after my knee replacement. And there was quite a bit in here about physical therapy, showing me some exercises, and it told me about some exercises I was supposed to do 3 weeks before surgery. I thought that was kind of strange. And there's a section in here. There was a little section called muscle memory, explaining why I was supposed to do these exercises. So I'm going to just read this paragraph to you about muscle memory. Why are you doing exercises before surgery? Every time you move a muscle, your brain learns how to make that movement. When you engage in any physical activity, your brain and muscles remember how you did it. When you repeat movements many times, your body develops muscle memory. Your muscles get used to the movement, and your brain remembers the skills learned. Doing physical therapy exercises before surgery builds muscle memory. After surgery, your body already knows the exercises, and the exercises are easier to do. So I talked with my physical therapist to learn more about muscle memory, and she told me, well, that's really a bit of a misnomer. It's not really the muscles that do the remembering. It's really all the neurons in the brain and the connections to the muscles that do the remembering. And so really what you're doing is you're reawakening all those neural circuits and strengthening those neural circuits that have been disrupted and confused by the surgery. And really, it's all about neuroplasticity. She was pretty excited, she wanted to know if I knew about neuroplasticity. And so now you can see why I see this connection between mental training and physical therapy. So that's when I started thinking, well, maybe there's some similarities. So here are 3 similarities. Similarity number 1, effort and repetition are essential for success because they enhance neuroplasticity. So with physical therapy, I heard stories from others who had gone through this process, and they all said, do the physical therapy. And I heard a few horror stories of people that hadn't done it, or they knew someone that hadn't done it, and they never got their full functionality. And that's kind of scared me. So I was religious about doing my physical therapy because I wanted full functionality. And so I knew that those neural circuits were being are working, like the neuroplasticities that work for me out there. And then I thought, well, but to my meditation practice and the level of effort that I put into that, or have put into that over my time, and I was wondering if I put in the same urgent effort doing my repetitions, and I haven't always done it. So you can't, if you don't do the repetitions, you can't always expect the neuroplasticity to take place. But that's probably why my teachers ask me, how's your daily practice, Randy? And why our teachers encourage us to practice daily or go on a retreat, because this right effort of doing things over and over is what makes it work. I started thinking, well, I don't really think I fully appreciated the urgency and value of doing this meditation, in the sense of being recovered from trauma. Knee surgery is trauma, but there's a lot of trauma in our lives, throughout our lives. And from childhood on, emotional, psychological, spiritual, existential, and this mental training is helping us get through that trauma. So that's I kind of started equating the meditation as physical therapy for the brain. With that's my first insight. The second similarity was that having a skilled teacher to guide you is important. So I told you how much training it takes to become a physical therapist, 3 years, and why it's important, how they can help customize, how they know how their body works, they can customize things for you. Well, the same thing is true for a meditation practice. If you read much or you talk to people that have been in this practice for a long time, they'll tell you it can be important to have a good teacher. And if you're a member here at MCMC, you can sign up to have a mentor here. And the mentor is a priest or a lay teacher. And the priests are highly trained. The priest training here, to become a priest here, to go all the way through the training process and become a priest that can be a mentor. The training process is 7 years long. And they have a curriculum of coursework, learning about Buddhist literature and ritual. They do service to the Sangha by serving as temple officers. They go on a 30-day solo retreat. There's a lot involved to become a priest, and they really become very experienced and skilled, just like physical therapists become skilled in their profession. And once they've done that, they're able to serve as useful guides in their role as interacting with one-on-one with individuals. So just like my therapist, physical therapist, last week I came, she said to me, she put me through my paces, looked how I walked and a few things. And she said, Randy, when you stand up from a chair, you're not fully extending your left knee. Here's a specific exercise I want you to do the next 2 weeks. So she gave me a very specific exercise to address a specific thing that she saw. And a teacher here with a meditation practice that gets to know you in a mentor relationship will probably be able to, if you talk to them about your issues in your practice and your life, will probably say, I think here's a book that would really be good for you to read, or here's an activity that you might want to try. So having a good teacher can be really important. That's a second similarity. And then the third similarity is that simple, specific activities can make a big difference. So the physical therapy exercises that I was given before surgery and during those first few weeks were really, really simple. And I kind of wondered if they were going to make a difference. For example, one of them was just to sit in a chair and slide my foot back and forth. That's all it was. And another one was to lie on my back in bed and just flex my thigh muscles for 5 seconds. That's all it was. Very simple. Turns out that specificity is really important in physical therapy and in developing neuroplasticity. It did make a difference if you repeat it over and over. And the same thing's true in Zen meditation. When I teach this class over there, I tell students to follow their breath in and out. I tell them. It's very, very simple. Very simple. It's not easy, but just come back to your breath when your mind wanders. It's very simple, very specific, but you do it for 30 minutes a day for months and months, and it can transform your life. So those were 3 similarities. But then I realized there's a big difference. Now, I do want to mention one big difference between physical therapy and mental training. And that is the physical therapy the goal is just to restore the physical functionality for one individual. And it just focuses on the physical, just focuses on the individual, and it doesn't go much beyond that. It doesn't consider broader topics like ethics or enlightenment or the meaning of life or spiritual growth, or it doesn't plug into anything bigger than the physical well-being of one individual. But when we talk about the steps 6, 7, and 8 of the Eightfold path, it's really embedded within that whole Eightfold path. And the notion is that the other aspects, the wisdom training and the ethics training, are just as important, and it all fits together as a complete package. So when you come here and listen to other talks and you take classes, you're gonna hear about not just the mental training aspect, but you're gonna hear about things like impermanence and interdependence and the bodhisattva vows, and you're gonna get a much bigger, complete package. So that's a big difference. And so that's kind of gets me to the end of the talk. So I just want to hit the three similarities one final time. Effort and repetition are essential for success because they enhance neuroplasticity. having a skilled teacher to guide you is important. And simple, specific activities can make a big difference. So those are things that I really hadn't thought as much about before this last month, when I was housebound for a while and couldn't think about much else. I don't know if the medications made my mind a little, you know, I was on some opioids for the first week or two, but anyway, those are my thoughts. And I'd be curious to hear what your thoughts and your questions and comments might be. And we have some time now to talk about that. And from people online or you guys here in the room.
I don't have any questions, but I really like the comparison.
Okay, thank you. So it worked. It wasn't completely
No,
off
yeah,
base.
I thought it kind of just gave a different, just a little different perspective. And it was, yeah, it really worked for me.
Okay, good. Anybody else?
It's like I had two thoughts. I've been trying to improve at some different sports lately, trying to stay active, and decided, instead of riding a bike, I wanted to really learn, have some kind of goal, some kind of skill that I'm getting better at, like tennis, for example. Today I was playing tennis. I played a little basketball with a friend, and just noticing the ways that I move my body when I'm doing those kind of activities. Kind of gets me thinking some of the footwork and thinking about, am I putting myself kind of at risk for injury with some of the ways that I'm moving around? Do I need to be thinking more about kind of how I'm aligning things? And, not really knowing any of the fundamentals of these kind of sports. So I guess this isn't really connected to meditation, but you're getting me thinking about these principles, same principles with like, maybe I need to find a teacher, a tennis coach who can look at the way I'm moving my body. And like, I might be underestimating the importance of that in like simple simple drills, fundamentals, instead of thinking about the complexities of, the spin I'm putting on some shot or something, just like, the basics. I'm thinking about that. And the other thought I had is, I just found this talk really engaging. Maybe because I like body mechanic type things to begin with. But I think also there's something about when you're taking an experience from your life and a new experience that you're having. Sometimes that can be really interesting in a talk rather than sort of conceptual, philosophical concept. Sometimes when it's really concrete, something that's coming from an experience in your life, I think sometimes that just makes things really.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. I was a little worried, it's just going wacko,
No, I liked it.